Florida Atlantic emerges victorious, 91-86 over Butler. Lucas Harkins from Heat Check CBB. GregWaddell here with him. We did the preview yesterday, Lucas, and we came on here and we said we thought this could be a big Vlad Golden game. He finishes with 19 points and 8 rebounds to me. I thought he was the best player on the floor tonight. Did you see what I saw?
I'm not sure where you're getting the rebounding numbers for. He had 8 defensive boards, I think.
Oh,
He had 11 boards for the game. Second consecutive game for Butler that the opposing starting center has had either equal or more rebounds than Butler's entire trio of centers.
Yeah, not great. How are you feeling? Let's just start more broadly with you before we dive into like intangibles here or details. I mean, you're a Butler fan. You looked at me. I heard some bitterness in your tone. It's Thanksgiving night as we record this at 11 p.m. Eastern. Is this a demoralizing loss for your Bulldogs?
I don't know if I'd go that far yet. I think that comes down to how Friday and Sunday go. But this was an away from home game against a nationally ranked opponent who was shorthanded, and Butler had a lot of chances. I mean, I think this is I'd have to do the math, but I believe this is the first game in the Thad Matta era that Butler has lost with an effective field goal percentage of 48.2% or better, which it's been when Butler scores, it's usually been pretty good. And they scored tonight, this afternoon, which is a huge positive. 9 for 19 from three. They shot 50% from the field for the game. That's a good night from Butler's offense, and that should be enough to win most games. But the problem is they can't, or they just haven't defensively rebounded yet. And they didn't in this game either. They got better as the game went on, but 17 second chance points is kind of what the story of the game was.
How much of that's personnel versus execution or scheme? Or because I look at Butler, right, and look, Jalen Thomas is obviously a guy who's been around, state of Michigan kid. Like, we liked him coming through the ranks. He ends up at Butler. He has a good opportunity, etc. He's obviously not the most physically imposing guy, even at 6'10", 240. But outside of him, like, is it all on him to get the? Like, I don't expect Telfort to come in and grab 8 to 10 boards any given game. Maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong, but Pierre Brooks is
he's never been a high rebounding rate guy.
Yeah, and Pierre Brooks is just not a physical guy in any way. So it's like, if you're going to play two small guards with Telfort and Brooks, like, it's all on the center to me, and that's just a huge ask of Jalen Thomas. Is that the right interpretation?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and be like basketball genius. I'm on no levels of what the coaching staff sees and what they put together as part of their roster and rotation. I think Butler knew coming into the season that the 5 spot was going to be very important, but also probably the weak spot. And I think that that's already kind of come to fruition through 5 games. That's been a that's been a tough spot. Jalen Thomas is quick and can defend on the perimeter, but not the best. He's not the best rebounder, and he's not the best scoring threat either. Andre Screen brings more size, but he's definitely slower and not able to really switch on the perimeter. Bowden Kapke might be the best mix, but he's a true freshman with a ways to go, especially in limiting fouls department. So like Jalen Thomas, he only fouled out today in 16 minutes.
Yeah,
that hurts. The Butler, I think you can say a lot about how important Posh Alexander is to Butler, how important Jameel Telfort is to Butler. Jalen Thomas might be the most indispensable guy on the team, and that's just because of the need for Butler to have him on the floor as the most consistently productive two-way center they have.
Yeah, and look, I don't mean to just crap on their personnel too harshly here. Like, it is what it is. But
better you than
me. I mean, call it what it is, right? Like, it was going to be a tough assignment for Jalen Thomas with Vlad Golden tonight.
Yep, sure.
It is what it is. And I think, like, we saw him with, like you said, with foul trouble in only 16 minutes. That's not exactly a surprise, given who the matchup was. We sat here during the preview and talked about Florida Atlantic shooting. They had 2 just torch the net games to start the year. Then they were historically awful, 5 for 30 in game 3. I expected them to come shoot the ball well, which is why I expected Florida Atlantic to win this game. It didn't really happen tonight. In fact, Butler was the team that shot well, 47% from 3, 9 for 19. Florida Atlantic only 7 for 22 from deep, 31% for you math experts out there. I guess to play one of my favorite games, was this just a make versus miss shots game? Like, is that why Butler was in this game? Because they just hit shots and Florida Atlantic didn't, and it was actually uglier if this had been more even?
Maybe to some extent. I think that Butler was also kind of due for a good shooting game itself. In that respect, I think Butler has better shooting personnel than it had shown to this point. I mean, DJ Davis is a career 40% 3-point shooter. He wasn't going to shoot 33% all year. When he gets looks, he'll knock him down. He was 3 for 5 today. That's not that abnormal. Jamil Telfort is a better shooter than his Northeastern numbers when he gets catch and shoot inside out looks, which are what he's gotten so far. Pasha Alexander with 9 assists today. A couple of those, I think, were to Telfort top of the key threes. I think that there's better shooting than Butler's 3-point percentage. I think the same goes for Florida Atlantic. I actually thought whoever shot the 3 better today, whoever got the breakout shooting performance was going to win, and Butler got that performance. And that's kind of where it comes down to just Butler's just wasn't able to win on the margins. Like, it really comes down to that defensive rebounding in a lot of ways. Like, they were outscored in second chance points, I think 17-9. And that's a tough spot to be, because not only does Butler give up second chance points, but also it takes away the ability to run in transition and get easier points in transition in that way.
Yeah. It was good to see some shots go through for Butler. I think you're right. Like, I believe in that team's perimeter shooting. Like, I believe these guys individually are good shooters. So good to see it happen against a team that I objectively would say is a very good defense. Florida Atlantic in general, just not all the way where they're supposed to be is my interpretation.
They're also not healthy either.
Right. And that's just
no, like, Nick Boyd today hurts.
Do we think Elijah Martin is he like 50%? What do you think he is right now? If you had to put a number on it.
It's not 100.
It doesn't feel like it's 50. That's where I'm going.
Yeah.
Like, I think he looks horrendous right now. And I feel for him. I think he's trying to play through it. And at some point it's going to click, but he's not close to the same player he was last year.
Yeah, and I think part of that is nice to know, like, Florida Atlantic is on the map for this year already.
Yeah.
Like, people know who they are when Elijah Martin is healthy, and it gives them the opportunity. Like, when it clicks, people are like, oh yeah, this is the team that was really good last year. It's not the, like, exciting mid-major that comes into the year that people, like the fourth place A10 team that gets a preseason top 25 vote. But, like, you don't really have any substance behind it, and you have to wait for it to come together. The substance is there for Florida Atlantic. It's already proven what it can be. And I think once they're healthy, it won't be that, like, needing to prove themselves again as it was last year. They've already done that. I think it's going to be a opportunity for them to just get better and better as the year goes on.
Yeah, as we advance through the bracket here, Florida Atlantic takes on Texas A&M on Friday now. Ken Pom has Texas A&M as 5-point favorites. Once again, I have not looked at what the betting line is. I know the public loves betting Florida Atlantic, so I would not be surprised if this ends up being in the 4-point range. A tough matchup here because I think A&M has been very good to start the season. And I don't know why I'm surprised by that. Like, I'll just say it. I've been a Texas A&M skeptic. I know they were dominant in the SEC.
I'm with you.
I know they were dominant in the SEC last year. Quite frankly, I don't know how. Like, I just haven't been able to add it together. I don't think their personnel added up to a team that should have won 50 games.
Second chance monsters.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. I mean, they're very good. And I think the thing I underestimate, Wade Taylor is a lot better than I was willing to give credit for coming into the season. So what type of challenge is that for Florida Atlantic? How do you expect they'll fare?
Yeah, I mean, you hit on it. Wade Taylor is, if you give a team that's best in the country in offensive rebounding rate, top 5 last year, a really star guard like Wade Taylor to build around, that's going to win a lot of basketball games. They really clicked down the stretch last year. An extensive PDF from Buzz Williams was not enough to get into the NCAA tournament, but they were right in the mix there. And I think they had a good argument to be there. And this year, I think they're kind of out to prove that they deserve to be in the tournament. And I think they're off to that start. I think they're a really, really tough opponent, and they give such a different look than Butler gives to an opponent with their just ability to dominate the offensive glass. They aren't a very good 3-point shooting team. I think it's a much different test, and I think it's going to be a very physical game.
Yeah, they strike me as a team that is not just like a chip on their shoulder team coming into the season. Yeah. They strike me as a team that has circled a game with the team who is everybody's March darling from last year, because that's who they wanted to be, and it didn't happen. And now here we are. Right. So I think they're going to get up for this game. I think Texas A&M is going to bring their A game. Obviously you don't know until it happens, but I think Florida Atlantic is going to need to make shots. That's my take going into this game. I don't think they're going to survive this one physically if they don't. luckily, they have a bunch of good shooters everywhere. They just need to actually make them. So should be a fun one for sure. Quickly on the other side of this, your Bulldogs now have Penn State. Penn State, metrically right now, the worst team in the Big Ten. That's a true story. People want to say Minnesota is really bad. They are currently, since the season has started, if you remove everything from preseason ranks, Penn State has been the worst team in this conference. I have not been impressed at all with the little that I've seen. I know they they didn't get blown out by Texas A&M today, but this was a comfortable loss from start to finish. It was never really dicey, and they had no answers defensively. So what do you think? I think Butler can win this game.
Yeah, I think the big matchup will be Butler's backcourt against Penn State's. Penn State's super quick at the 1 and 2 spot. Like Posh Alexander can only guard one of those guys. And that's going to be a challenge. And, Butler's had some turnover issues this year at times. And Mike Rhodes' coach team is going to really get after you on defense. They're currently 3rd in the country in turnover rate. I think in all five of his last 6 years at VCU, they were top 10 in turnover rate force. They were top 15 in defense 4 of those 5 years. They're going to really make Butler work on offense. And Butler, outside of its game against Florida Atlantic, has had some offensive struggles over the last year and a half. And I think that's going to be a big challenge, is how well Butler's able to take care of the ball against those guards, and if they're able to stay in front on the defensive end.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good matchup. It's an interesting, fun matchup. I think it's going to be a good one.
I think it's more fun than, no offense to you, I know you're a Butler guy, but I think it's more fun than the general college basketball fan would think when they see the names Penn State and Butler on paper. Sure. Like there's some substance and some flair to the personnel of both of these teams this year. Ace Baldwin against Posh Alexander and the rest of the Butler guards. I think Butler has the better backcourt here. I know Ace is a dynamic guy. Kanye Clary's been pretty good for Penn State thus far, but to me, I think Butler has 3 guys that I trust more than Ace Baldwin and Clary, and you don't really know who's.
And I'm not sure if pun intended there, but I think that might be the X factor of the game, is landing more off the bench for Butler. If he's still off the bench, he's looked very consistently solid the last 2 games. He was 3 for 3 against Florida Atlantic. He's a careful ball handler, 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. At St. Francis last year, he's the guy that I think will take care of the ball, and they'll need him to in the minutes either he shares with Posh or if Posh is off the floor.
Yeah, 100%. All right, there you have it. Thank you so much, Lucas Harkins from Heat Check CBB. Lucas, what was the first Thanksgiving side on your plate tonight?
I think it was mashed potatoes was first on the list.
Traditional. I like that from you.
It's not a passing Thanksgiving. It's a table on top of a pool table at my in-laws with like just different stations you go to. And I think mashed potatoes was the first stop.
More importantly, what was the thermometer set at? What was the temp?
Oh God. I don't know, but it's not as bad as I know you're trying to indicate. It was a good night.
Just understood. All right, Lucas Harkins, Heat Check CBB. Thank you so much for being here. Sleepers Media, click subscribe on the channel if you want to see all of our recaps and previews throughout the college basketball season. We'll see you next time.